and you're very welcome back to episode number 7 of our Final Whistle Ladies Gaelic Football Podcast. We had 2 podcasts last week, of course, reflecting on a previous week and looking ahead to the weekend's action in the All-Ireland Intermediate and Junior semi-finals. And we'll have another 2 this week, of course. Senior action taking the billing on Saturday, of course. We'll have Kerry taking on Meath and Dublin then taking on Galway in a double header in Tullamore. And also we'll have our episode, which is tonight's, and that'll be looking back at all of the semi-finals and the relegation playoff that took place, of course, on a sweltering weekend, to say the least, across the country. Once again, delighted to be joined by Joanne Doonan from Fermanagh and Clare Owens from Leitrim. We'll get straight in to the action from the weekend. We'll start with the intermediate semi-finals, the first of which we'll look at is the game between Laois and Monaghan. Laois booking their place in the intermediate All-Ireland final after a 5-7 to 1-12 win over Monaghan. 4 goals in the opening half laying the groundwork for Laois's victory, and then of course they get a goal toward the latter stages of the second half to secure their place in a second All-Ireland intermediate final in 4 years. Laois starting brightly, a game that we said would be very competitive and would be high scoring, to get a goal in the 3rd minute through Emma Lawler. Monaghan start coming back into the game, and then Laois just straight back into it with another goal, getting the ball into the net as Ciara Crowley managed to raise the green flag. And then no sooner had they 2 than they got the 3rd, arriving through Moan Ernie, and with 15 minutes gone, you have a 3-1 to 3-point lead. Monaghan then raising a green flag of their own with 13 players on the pitch, which was definitely another narrative to the game in terms of the amount of cards that were dished out in that game. Sarah Tierney finding the net there, but Laois just their forwards. We've mentioned the likes of Emma Lawler and Moan Ernie, and then you see Moan Ernie getting another goal there, and 5 minutes before half time they get the 4th. They're kicking on. They're 4-4 to 1-6 up at half time. Monaghan, they come back into the game. After the restart, the gap was down to 5, and then Laois start to pick up a card or 2, and you're going straight back into the game. Monaghan bring the deficit down to 2 points. You're thinking game very much on here, and then Monaghan get another yellow card. They get a red card. They're down to 13, and then Laois just see out the game very, very well. Lawler grabbing her 2nd goal, and then a couple of more points going over the board. And Laois are now looking to get all the buses ready and organised for the 3rd of August now in Croke Park. On the game itself, I know, Joanne, you've seen plenty of Laois from your game. Like Laois's firepower really coming to light, but maybe Monaghan will be disappointed just that their discipline might have let them down in key areas of the game.
Yeah, 100%. Like, you can't be, like you said, when they got back from, I suppose when you see 3 goals go in any game, you'd be thinking, geez, we're doing well here, and they get it back to 2 points, and then they kind of be sucker punched with the yellow card and the red card. It really is deflating for a team. And you probably thought, well, there's a chance to push on, and then things like that happen, and then I suppose followed up by another goal. Like, you can only assume, like, the body language goes, you're just kind of like, that was our chance and we missed it, kind of thing. I'm sure there's frustration in the Monaghan camp, but I think they can definitely hold their heads high with probably, I suppose, how they started this year, and then pushing on at how well they did actually in championship. It is really, really good. And I suppose if that team sticks together and, gets a few more of the, I suppose, club scene girls to come back to Monaghan, I'd say they're definitely a force to be reckoned with next year. But that Laois team is even we were talking about having a sweeper against them because of how, strong their forwards are. And it did sound like they were quite open. I didn't see some of the game, but Laois are definitely going to punish you when they're giving them opportunities.
Laois just look very, very strong. And I think just this year they wanted to build and they wanted to grow, and they've shown, I suppose, their experience. And look, they were there back in 22. They went up to senior, didn't have the best run in senior. They really wanted to kick on after that All-Ireland success. And look, they have another crack at getting the intermediate All-Ireland title under their belts in a couple of weeks' time, and trying to go back up to senior next year and to keep building. And they have built quite a lot over the years. And I know you have, we mentioned Emma Lawler there, and obviously Moan Ernie. They've so much experience around the field, and I think Monaghan are a very young team, and I wonder, Joanne, is that, when you have those younger girls, is it maybe just, I don't want to say naivety, but like kind of inexperience that led to maybe just a couple of, over exuberant challenges that just cost them when you see a couple of yellow cards and then that red card being dished out late on?
Yeah, look, again, like I said, I didn't get to see it myself, but it's probably one of them things you kind of have to play to the ref, don't you? And you have to kind of adjust. If after the first sin bin that he's going to give them, potentially what might be a tick to another referee, a yellow card to his book, you're going to assume that, we kind of have to adjust our tackling here, adjust our discipline. We're not going to get away with maybe what we got away with last week. So it is definitely something that teams have to be a wee bit more adaptable to, and maybe how much it impacts the team. It could come down to that wee bit of experience and that knowledge, but also maybe the experience of the Laois girls in playing a wee bit more on those frees and adding a wee bit more if they got a hit, to kind of make it more of a sin bin challenge than maybe just a free kick, So look, how they can go both ways in that. But again, like you said, like they're a very, very young team. And even we were talking off the podcast about, like, Monair and them, it's like, you don't know what team's going to come back next year, So again, for a lot of that Laois team, they could be pushing on for one last crack at it. And likewise, that Monaghan is a fresh young team. They obviously want to get back up to senior too, but they've a lot of potential ahead of them.
And I think Monaghan can take an awful lot from this championship season. Obviously they had that result against Wicklow in the group stage that, dented their chances to get the home quarter final, but they kicked on, went down to Clare, played some fantastic football. I know, talking to Jennifer last week, like they were really happy to come away with that, and they were starting to play really good football, and those training sessions were really well. And I think just, we spoke about, I suppose, where Monaghan were all those years ago, and can definitely see them coming back. They got to the semi-final this year. It's great growth for them, and no doubt they will want to come back next year. And look, they could be a team, maybe even a dark horse in the 2026 championship. But as you said, like, you just don't know what's going to happen in terms of what team could come together next year, because obviously we'll have Laois in the All-Ireland final, and then we have their opponents to talk about, who came through an absolute goal fest in Carrick and Shannon, while we had a fantastic game in Glennon Brothers Pierce Park, a classic between those two teams. The game in Park Sean in Carrick, like, another extra time, Tyrone winning 4-17 to 4-14. After their extra time clash with Fermanagh, Tyrone going the distance again and showing, I suppose, their experience and just how strong a team they are. Just even when their backs were to the walls in the final few minutes, they just showed what they're capable of. And last year's finalists, now back in Croke Park, started really strong, got the opening 4 points, then didn't score for the remainder of the first half. They got 4 points in 7 minutes, and then, Westmeath just started coming in. Sarah Dillon with 3 points, and then Lucy McCartan and Anna Jones getting a couple of scores there, and they're straight back into, they're leading by 6 points to 4 at half time. Tyrone come back in 1-2 from Aoife Horace. We spoke about her, just what she can bring to the team. Niamh O'Neill gets a couple of points, and Sorcha Gormley, and suddenly it's a 6-point lead for Tyrone in the blink of an eye in the second half. 6 minutes into the second half, they've put up that tally. Like, I think it's frightening just what Tyrone can bring to the table with their level of scoring. But then back came Westmeath, and going into the final quarter of normal time, they were 3 points up. Katie Kilmurray gets a goal, then they get a penalty, Anna Jones tucks it away. You're thinking, okay, what way could this go? It's nearly, I suppose, edge of the seat stuff, and then they're 6 points clear. Thinking, okay, maybe Tyrone mightn't come back into this. They just mightn't have enough in the legs. But then they get 1-3 without reply, and Horace scores probably one of the best goals I've seen in a long, long time. Just what a solo effort from herself. Fires Tyrone into extra time, and I suppose Joanne, from your game, like, extra time can go anyway. It's a knife edge. You played for so long. You're tired. The heat as well was another big factor at the weekend, and I'm sure the few minutes that the girls got to contemplate everything going into the first half of extra time was great to get some fluids on board. And then come at the hour, come at the woman. It's Sorcha Gormley again that scores a decisive goal, and while Westmeath tried until the very end, just falling to defeat in the end. I know, Claire, you tipped Westmeath as a team to look out for this year. They were very strong, and I think will be very, very disappointed that they had led by 6 points at the end, and unfortunately left Carrick on the losing side.
Yeah, well, look, we talked a lot about the initial game between these two teams in the lead up to this one, and I'm just really glad, I suppose, that come semi-final stage, that result was totally insignificant. Like Westmeath, the pattern of the game was like really hard to follow. Obviously, you kind of thought, right, Westmeath have it now, they're on top, now Tyrone are on top. So, like, brilliant quality of game in a semi-final from both teams. Westmeath will be so disappointed, obviously. I can't even imagine for both teams having to go to extra time over the weekend. Like, it was enough to play the 60, but fair play. Like, again, mentally you're fatigued playing extra time, but on a weekend like that, weather-wise, you're physically very, very fatigued. So Tyrone will be delighted, Westmeath will be disappointed, but yeah, I think, like you said there, just to kind of have that star power, Tyrone at the minute. Like, I looked at both lineouts before that game, and you're looking at Westmeath going, oh my God, look at their full back line, oh, look at their half back line. All the way through the team, you're going, wow, what a line. Then you look at Tyrone, you're going, okay, well, they're probably going to match each other there in terms of quality. So it was set up to be a really, really tight game. It wasn't surprising that it went to extra time, but yeah, Tyrone, just to have, they have that one player who kind of, like you said, when it really, really matters, she stands up, as do they all, but she has that kind of star quality, and when you have someone like that, you're always going to be able to shout when it's really, really tight.
And it's the 19-year-old that's showing her maturity beyond years. And I know, yeah. And I know Joanne mentioned that when you played Tyrone, and she gets the 2 goals in the second half of extra time. It swings the momentum and swings the game ultimately the way of Tyrone. Like, she's a quality player. But even as Claire, you said there, obviously, coming into the game, we did speak about, look, Westmeath did play Tyrone in the group stage, and look, this was the result. And talking to Sarah Dillon and Evie McHugh last week, I asked them just about that game, and like, Sarah was obviously disappointed at the way it transpired. Evie was like, look, we knew, like, this is obviously going to be a tougher game, and like, Tyrone, like, obviously they have the battle scars from 12 months ago and getting to Croke Park and ultimately falling short, and the heartbreak that went with it. They've been really, really tested since the knockout stages. Like, they've went the distance against Fermanagh, had to go the distance against Westmeath. Again, could have gone either way in the second half of extra time. You just don't know. Bounce of a ball here, or just anything could have gone in your favour. And, they're heading back to Croke Park now. But, I suppose you don't want to put a favourites tag on a team, but like Tyrone, they're looking like a team of champions, even though they haven't gotten the silverware. They're playing like a team that, has the confidence, has the swagger to say, even when the chips are down, even when they're 6 points down in the closing exchanges of a game, we can still find some way to get out of the hole, and we'll be getting all the buses now to Croke Park on the 3rd of August.
Yeah, they've definitely shown very good character for still a very young team. Like you said, to see out them games and to not, I suppose, tackle or throw the towel in, or like, it's interesting. Like, and I do funny when I seen the game go to extra time, I was like, Tyrone have it. I was just saying, like, that experience, even that they've already done it. I know Abby in the change room saying, we done this the last time, girls. We know exactly what we need to do. You'd be thinking, you'd be just using that to your experience. And like you said, like, a lot of them girls were there last year in Croke Park. Like, they have that hunger, they have that, I suppose, motivation and drive behind them that, with nothing to lose here, they may as well go for it. But like that, with Laois, maybe Laois are happy with where they're at. Like, but look, at nobody goes into that All-Ireland final thinking that, oh yeah, we're just happy to be here, maybe it's one of them things. I think when you come down from a grade, you're thinking, oh, we didn't deserve to go down, we're well able to be sometimes, but other times maybe you'd be like, God, maybe this is where we need to be. But they've kind of proved, that they are very good. And don't get me wrong, I know a lot of teams ran them close, but they'll still have a point to prove that they want to be, up in that senior competition too. So yeah, it's makes for a really good final, I think, again.
And definitely it will. You have the 2022 winners against last year's finalists. Like it's shaping up to be like both defenses could struggle on the day based on the scoring that these two teams are totting up. Like we could be, I'd say, bring a couple of extra biros to report on the game, and you might need a couple of extra pages on the match program just to put the scores alongside some of the names, because this game could absolutely go down to the wire, and it could just be the signs of a classic. 1:45 on the 3rd of August, Laois taking on Tyrone. It's shaping up to be a very hotly contested final, and I suppose there are two teams that when we were looking at all the games, they were showing their quality. And Tyrone, I think, were a team that, they were last year's finalists. They were obviously going to be a team that you were going to have on the radar. And Laois coming down, as you said, Joanne, like a team that comes down, they could be in a rebuilding phase or they could be building off of what they had. And I think Laois are still using what they had, but they're bringing loads of new girls into the team. In terms of a team that are in a transition period and have won an All-Ireland, of course, last week we spoke about the classic between Wicklow and Offaly in the relegation playoff. And last week I had hoped to bring the Wicklow captain, Sarah Jane Winders, on, but there were celebrations on the Sunday and then a holiday followed the week, so she just couldn't come on the podcast. But managed to get her on this week, and here's what she had to say about that absolutely enthralling clash between themselves and Offaly. Now, last week it was all about securing intermediate status for Wicklow, and I'm delighted to be joined by their captain, Sarah Jane Winders, after a fantastic battle with Offaly. Sarah Jane, you're very welcome to our Ladies Gaelic Football podcast.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much for inviting me as well. It's great to be here.
That game with Offaly, I think it had everything. I was saying it last week, just how amazing an advertisement for ladies football it was. Like a game of swings and roundabouts and just every class of a momentum shift that could go in either side's favour. Just what was the emotion like when the final whistle sounded and Wicklow had secured their intermediate status for next season?
It was just pure relief, and we just couldn't believe that we actually got there. It was just, thank goodness, because with the way the regular time had gone, we really were trying to emotionally prepare for the loss in the middle of the match, and to come out with the win at the end was pure relief, and we were all thrilled and delighted for the effort that we had put in during the year, and to be able to overcome such a tough battle. It was brilliant.
Because I know 12 months prior, give or take, you played Antrim in a relegation playoff as well, and that game was a fantastic performance from yourselves in terms of the winning margin, whereas this one was an awful lot tighter, and probably moments in the game where you thought, can we bring it back? Like Offaly had a 100 million mile an hour start to proceedings, getting 2 goals in a matter of minutes, and they held an advantage at half time, and then they got the goal early on in the second half that might have been a bit of a sucker punch to you just trying to come back into the second half. Like, what was the thought process, I suppose, after those 2 goals and then maybe even the third one, just in terms of your momentum and just what you were thinking of throughout the game?
Yeah, I think say, just reflecting on last year and the win against Antrim, obviously it was great to get that, and it was it was a good enough win that we were confident throughout the game. So the experience you get from that wasn't huge, and it was the only match that we in championship that we were able to win last year. So it wasn't we weren't really able to get the experience of trying to get that over the line. Whereas this year we have had matches that we've been able to win in championship, and it's just been able to get the girls to be able to manage the game, and just even if you're in a loss and if your team has a good start, it's getting the composure back. So when the 2 goals went in the first half, and they obviously came out all guns blazing, and we were a bit not shocked, but it just kind of took the wind from us, and I do like even going in at half time, as a captain, I was like, we actually have settled ourselves. Like we were against a bit of a wind. It was going across the pitch, but we were able to settle ourselves. So I think we knew that we didn't let the game go completely away from us. So to be able to know that we were able to keep within like like only 5 points of them at half time against the wind, it was like a good bit of confidence for us that we could turn it around. And then we came out in the second half, did well, but then when the goal went in, it was like, okay, this is a tough battle. And it was just people like, our team is very young, but the girls were able to step up so much, like all across the field, to get the ball back up the pitch, to get another, like to get within 3 points of them. It was huge. So it was just, and I think the Monaghan game for us we were able to go back to using that. Like we were 2 points up at half time, and then to win by a point in the end. It's not something that we're very we have a lot of experience of doing in the last couple of years. So I think that was a huge kind of foundation for us in the Offaly game, and being able to revert back to that, knowing that we were able to kind of see out that and get to the final whistle and get to the final whistle with a strong performance, and just no matter what just gets thrown at us, we weren't panicking. And I would think it was huge like in the performance against Offaly, just to stop ourselves from panicking, because in other games over the last couple of years we would have panicked and we would have let the game run away from us, but we were able to manage it much better against Offaly, and it's down to the previous matches that we've had during the year.
Obviously, the win against Offaly was fantastic, and we'll touch on, I suppose, the ending of that game in a moment. But you mentioned there the Monaghan game. Like, that was a game that Monaghan had to win to try and top the group, and were going down. They were going into that game all guns blazing because they wanted to try and top the group and get the home quarter final and try and stake their claim to get into the last four, which they ended up doing, but they had to go down to Clare and so on and so forth. But just how big a momentum boost was it to have gotten that win? Because as you mentioned, you didn't win a game last season in the championship until it came down to the very last day against Antrim, and then you go back to 23, it was Offaly in the group stage. So it was a while waiting for the results. So just how uplifting was it to get that win under your belts, knowing that, look, you were going into the relegation battle anyway, just with the way the score difference was going against Monaghan. But I'm sure it just gave you the belief to say, look, we have the chance now to stay up.
Yeah, it was huge, and like I've played 12 seasons with Wicklow, and I've never played Monaghan, and same with going against Cavan. Like there were two teams that we'd never played against before. So to be able to, and they're a very strong team and playing Division 2 football, and like to be able to even compete against them was huge, especially because we knew that they had beaten Cavan, and Cavan obviously had beaten us well the week before. So to be able to compete against them and put it up to them and manage their players was huge. And then to be able to see out the game with a win, it was like a bit of a click in the team to know that we can achieve things. If things go, things go well for us, we're in the right mind frame, and that's huge in ladies football as well. Like it's like everyone, I don't think there's a huge difference between different like players and different teams, but it's just how things work out and what's on the day, and anything can happen. But yeah, just to see out that game, it was a big stepping stone for Wicklow ladies football.
I know the Roscommon game that followed didn't go the way you would have wanted. You still put in a very strong performance and put it up to a very strong Roscommon team. Then we're talking about, you don't know what can happen. You go back to the second half. So, Offaly, you've got that third goal. You're thinking, maybe they're going to push on now and show their experience. And then Lucy gets the second. The margin starts to decrease. You're even up in the forward line attacking. Everyone is trying to do their little part in, trying to overcome the deficit. The clock starts ticking well past the 60th minute. We're well gone into the red at this point. You get the free. You're thinking, right, it's one last roll of the dice and the ball is floated in And of all the people that get their hand to it, it's Sinead that fists it into the back of the net, and we have extra time. I don't know what your angle of the goal was and what your reaction immediately when you seen it trickle over the line, but I think that was just, you couldn't have asked for a more dramatic ending to that game.
Oh, I was in disbelief. Like, for like Lucy, her passes into Sinead, like they play club together, and the passes that they have, the connection that they have is spot on. So I knew when Lucy was like giving the ball in, and I could see Sinead in the edge of the square, and Sinead is so strong in there. Like a number of players could be around her, and she'll still get the hand to the ball. So when I saw her fingertips go and like hit it in direction to goals, but then I saw the Offaly player on the goal line, I was like, oh sugar! Like it was perfect up until that point, and then I was like, she's gonna catch it, and then I was like trying to get in on top of her, like just trying to throw everything I had, and then before I even got in on top of her, it bounced off her arm. And when it went into like the grass is really long in the goals, and they were talking about how if the ball gets stuck in the grass, they could count a goal, even if, because it wasn't acceptable or whatever. But when it went into that long grass, I was like, oh my goodness! Like I was like, how? I was like, and I knew it was just over because I'd been asking the time constantly. I asked the ref about the time, so it was just pure disbelief. And like I knew we had like the legs in us. Like our fitness has been strong enough throughout the season, even with like injuries and stuff like that. But like it was just amazing to see that, and I wanted to hug Sinead. And it was going to be a tough battle, like in the next extra, like the extra time, that the weather was warm and we were running out of water nearly. But it was just we came back from, well, we like a 8 point, 8 points down, and we probably didn't deserve to be there in the extra time, but we got there somehow, and it was just huge. It was brilliant.
Then you're obviously going into extra time, and you say a few minutes ago you try not to panic and you're trying to work things out. You kicked on in the opening half of extra time, and that's the first time in the game that Wicklow did take a lead, and obviously held it right until that final whistle did sound. What was the thinking like when you did get that small bit of a break after knowing, okay, we're going into extra time?
It was just we knew we were starting to play the way we like to play, and like we knew that like we could kind of keep ourselves composed, and we just take a breath and just do the things that we enjoy doing on the pitch, because we weren't really doing that in the regular time. So once we knew that we were running off the shoulder, like just emptying the tank and giving the ball into the forwards, like we could just like retain, like where it's a big thing of us like holding possession and like not to give away the ball, because when you have such a young team, things can get like you just think you're doing the right thing and then you end up losing it, and it can be quite like difficult to retain the ball. So if we could keep our turnovers to a minimum, we knew that we could get over Offaly in the extra time.
Obviously you go on, see the game out, crazy scenes then when the final whistle did sound. Intermediate for another year, consecutive years that you've gotten over that line right at the death in terms of those relegation playoffs. Like a few years previous, in 2021, it's not that far, past since Wicklow went in and won the All-Ireland in Croke Park, of course, you playing your part that day and getting the honour and the distinction to lift that cup at the end of it. Now you look, Joe, it's a few years later, maybe the word transition has been mentioned in Wicklow, that there's a lot of changes both on and off the field since Wicklow did win the All-Ireland that year. And I know you've had that heartbreak of relegation in the past, and I'm sure all that was fueled with the win. So just how important was it for Wicklow ladies football to still be an intermediate team for 2026?
Yeah, it's so important. Like when you're playing junior football, it's tough, and I feel like it's getting tougher every year. So when like even we lost the final in 2020 when we were junior, and it was, even though we gave it everything, it was devastating. Like because it does just take a couple of years to get back up again, and if you're lucky as well. But yeah, so and then after 2021, we were hoping to push on and do well in intermediate, but like players like obviously went traveling and had given so much service to the county team that they stepped away. So transition has been floating around for since 2021, and it has been very tough with like just new girls getting to know how to like what's expected, what's like what you need to do to step up, and like realizing that they are like now leaders even though they're only 20, 21, 22. Like I'm the second oldest person on the team at the moment, and like when I like it would have when I was younger, it would have been like people in their 30s that would have been the oldest. I'm 21, 29, and I have been one of the oldest for a couple of years now. And like the girl that is older than me, like she only started playing with Wicklow 2 years ago. So, to be be one of the older ones and one of the leaders, like for that length of time, it has been like it's been a tough transition. But I definitely think that, and I like the girls with the few years of being say the likes of Neve Cullen, Aoife Gorman, Lucy Dunn, like they're still very young, but they have stepped up and they like are taking on like roles that like girls that age normally don't have to think about. So like they have really put Wicklow in a good place that we can stay at intermediate, and I think we are like I know the Offaly game was tough and it wasn't like probably our best performance in the regular time, but I do think we can compete at intermediate, and to stay up there like it's a huge like I would treat the relegation final as a junior All Ireland nearly, because like there's no trophy at the end of it, but it's really really huge. So just to learn how to win important games like that, it's really really important, and I hope next year that Wicklow can like bring that confidence of knowing how to just see out games into the league, push on, and even push on in the intermediate championship, because the capabilities are definitely there. The experience is growing, and you can see that with the results that we've had.
Well, we'll have to wait and see just what 2026 has in store for us in terms of what way the championship. If it's anything like 2025 with the way the league and even the championships have gone, we always say it. I think it's a cliche term on the podcast now. You just can't call what way ladies football is going at the moment. But Sarah Jane, thanks very much for coming on to the Ladies Gaelic Football podcast this week. And I'm sure there'll be plenty more celebrations in Wicklow to follow and before your championship kicks off. But thanks very much for coming on, and we wish you and Wicklow all the best for 2026.
Thanks very much, Diarmuid. Thanks for having me.
So that, of course, was the Wicklow ladies captain, Sarah Jane Winders. Now it's all about the junior championship and the two semi-finals in the doubleheader that we saw in Clonus on Sunday. First up, last year's beaten finalists Louth booking their place in the decider once again with a 114 to 6 point win over Longford. Kate Flood stealing the headlines with a 10-point haul. Louth, they enjoyed plenty of early possession, but just found it, I suppose, hard to get scores. Longford, to their credit, were strong in the opening few minutes. They did get the opening score in the 6th minute through Sheehan Gallagher. Then Kate Flood kicks 2 frees. Louth go back into the lead, but Shauna Hagan has Longford level in the 14th minute. But then Louth started to show their firepower and their class. Flood with 2 more frees, and then Emer Byrne finds the back of the net in the 18th minute. Aoife Russell then gets a point, and Longford, they're struggling to get into the game. They're down to 14 players in the 26th minute. Mairead Victory goes into the sin bin. Then Flood gets another point on the half-hour mark, and then Louth are 1-7 to 2 points up at half-time. They're looking strong, continued it to start the second half. They move into a 10-point lead with Flood and Russell getting the scores. And then I suppose more like a double sucker punch for Longford, in the sense that they had a goal chance in the 41st minute. The ball goes over the line. Camille Burke's free is finished in net by Katie Crawford, and the goal is disallowed for a foul. And then Louth start to get back into proceedings, and Flood kicks 3 points, and then Kieran Nolan gets a score, and suddenly it's 113 to 3 points in favour of Louth. Aoife Cooney makes a fantastic save to stop Louth getting a second goal, and Longford, to their credit, they keep battling, trying until the very end, but Louth's experience and their just scoring ability just proves a bit too tough for Longford. But like, can't fault Longford's efforts this year. They've done very, very well. A team that not a lot of people had tipped to get into the semi-final stage. And look, it's all, I suppose, a building for them. You know, it's been a good few years since they were in an All-Ireland semi-final, and you know, they showed what they can do to get there, and I'm pretty sure they can build from that. Just on Louth, and I know, Joanne, we're always going to say last year and playing them, but like, looking at them, they're still very hungry, and they'll be going back to Croke Park this year with a point to prove that they want to break that glass ceiling and not only pick up the All-Ireland junior title, but be playing intermediate football next year.
Yeah, look, just like you mentioned, Tyrone kind of have that hunger from last year, and they look like a team that's on a mission this year. I think Louth definitely is in that same category. Like, they've you know, shown that you know, they are, I suppose, on paper, and you like the way the score lines have racked up, they are kind of ahead of the teams that they've been competing against. And I suppose going in against Longford, it would have probably surprised me now if Longford did come out with the win against Louth, just of how on form they are going. But yeah, I feel like they've just fantastic players, similar to Laois too. They've a few of very experienced girls that are, you know, even Kate Flood getting married and all this year, still committing to stay out another year. Like, it's big commitments for these girls that, like, you know, they're missing out. I'm sure that the honeymoon won't be till after the All Ireland, but hopefully it'll be worthwhile in that case. So yeah, I think they're definitely, it's going to be an interesting one. I always remember, even in that junior competition, you know, if you got to the final, even the last time we did against Louth, you're thinking, we're definitely, you know, we can push on, we can get there next year. And you kind of forget then another intermediate team's come down. So there's always going to be that in the back of their head. They're going really, really well, but they know they have to come up against Antrim too. So it is going to be a very interesting final.
That'll be some celebrating on the honeymoon if you doubled it up with an All-Ireland winning holiday. Like, that'd be, you know, great. But like, just, we've spoken so much about what Louth bring to the table, and you see like Anya Breen getting the Player of the Month award for just her efforts, like standout captain for them, just has been a big leader. But they have those other leaders, and I suppose we did mention Kate Flood. She might have been a bit quiet in a couple of games in the lead up when we were talking about other players that get the scores, but I mean, I think any team, well, we know who they will be playing them in the final, that you can't really give Kate Flood the chances to score frees. She got 6 of them the last day in that 10-point haul, and you know, Emma Byrne gets the goals. That's just, you know, they only had the 4 scorers the last day to clock up that score line. And you know, like, you're scoring 114 off of 4 players. We will see when Louth get into Croke Park, you will see more of those scoring threats starting to come into it. But just on Longford, like, I suppose they've been disappointed with how a couple of years went and getting relegated and just trying to build it. And I suppose, Claire, when they're not a million miles away from where you are up in Leitrim, like, is it great to see those neighbouring counties doing well and just starting to build, and you know, potentially, you know, bringing silverware and playing in these All-Ireland semi-finals? Just great to see those type of counties like Longford doing well.
Yeah, of course. And I think, you know, you'd hope from what they've managed this season, I hope they're building on that rather than starting all over again. Like, it's the nature of more so ladies football than men's, it has to be said. Like, you really don't know what your panel is going to look like until it starts coming together at the kind of the tail end of one season and before the start of the next one. So I'd hope that a lot of that panel stay together, because they have done great things this year, and you know, they need that bit of continuity. They need a core group of players to stay there. Of course, there'll always be drop-offs and coming in and coming out for different reasons, but like, that this year has been a real good step in the right direction for Longford. And yeah, like, yes, there is a good to see. It's brilliant to see. Like, I think I maybe some counties are example. We've all been in that situation of starting all over again. And some girls are in age going, do I start all over again with this group, or do I say goodbye? And, there's hard calls to be made. So I'd hope that group stay together, because they have played some great football this year. And, as for coming up against a team like Louth in a semi-final, Louth are consistently in semi-finals and finals of the league and championship. They know how to win those games. And, it does count for a lot when you're in knockout football more often than you're not. They're not a team that kind of disappear out of a league, and you hear about them every year. So that was a big, it was a big prospect taking them on, and probably quite daunting, but definitely a good year overall for Longford. And like I said, I'd hope that majority of that group stay together, because they're definitely going places.
And I'm sure, success breeds success, that seeing Longford make an All-Ireland semi-final this year, and, that'll, I suppose, ignite the spark that, and you'll see it, the girls, like when they get that, I suppose, the itch that, you're 60 minutes away from Croke Park here. Like, we're getting to an All-Ireland semi-final as Longford in the ladies, where we've struggled over the last few years, that if players had walked away from the panel, have travelled and now come home, that, Longford could build from that and bring the girls that are coming through the underage ranks up and just try and build this team. And we could be talking about Longford in an All-Ireland final in the next couple of years.
Oh, completely. Like I said, like the standard of club football in Longford would be high, as I just know a couple of the teams. And, even when a county team isn't going well, it doesn't mean there aren't good players in the county. Sometimes we can kind of forget that, they don't have the players. Like, it's very often not the main reason why a county team are struggling. So, it's great for those girls, like you say, if you're going, we got to an All-Ireland semi-final. Of course, no one wants to leave it there. They want to be marching on to Croke Park. But, in a couple of weeks' time, maybe you could sit down with a lot of those girls and they'd say, yeah, felt like we played good football, felt like we kind of, made a good contribution to the overall championship. Like, as I say, it's never really the case that you're going, that county don't have the players. There's always other stuff. So good confidence boost for a lot of those girls, because there's super talent in Longford.
Absolutely. Obviously, Louth now are going into the All-Ireland final, and in similar fashion to the intermediate final, where you have a finalist from last year, you now have a previous All-Ireland winner on the other side of the coin in the 2022 All-Ireland Junior Champions, in the form of Antrim, now 17 games unbeaten. I can add another asterisk alongside this unbeaten run. Of course, it was 16. Now it's 17. Will it be 18? We'll have to find out on August the 3rd. But Antrim, maybe for the first time, definitely in the championship in terms of the scoreline, had the closest game that they have had. 310 to 110 winners over Sligo. Sligo battling right until the very end, 3 points down in the closing stages, and could potentially have forced extra time, but Antrim showing their desire and the passion to want to get back to Croke Park, just with their standout defending. Sligo starts strong. Ellen Kelleher gets the opening score. Then it's kind of tit for tat. Lara DeHunsey replies. Then Leah Duffy and Sarah O'Neill exchange scores in the opening 6 minutes. Sligo go ahead by 2 points after 13 minutes. Then Antrim just show their class. Brona Devlin and Marie O'Neill draw them level. DeHunsey puts them ahead. And then Anya Devlin has a fantastic save to deny a goal-bound effort from Leah Duffy. At the other end, then Antrim, they just go through the gears. They're 8 points to 4 up at half time. It's a very close game, but Antrim would have been the happier sides going into the dressing room, knowing that they just had, that lead in place. Then Sligo come back into it. Anna McDaniel kicks the opening score of the second half, but that was their first score since the 13th minute of the game. So you think, okay, maybe confidence and momentum might shift their way. Then Anya Tuberty gets a score, and then Antrim hit the jugular in the 37th minute. Marie O'Neill, fantastic run through the Sligo defence and just fires to the back of the net. And then Devlin again, just with another fantastic save. This time she denied McDaniel, and, from their perspective, had those goals have gone in, could have been talking about a completely different game. Sligo were battling away. Brona Devlin made it a 7-point advantage a couple of minutes after, and then O'Neill gets her second goal. Antrim start to pull away a small bit, but then Sligo bring it back. Leah Duffy and Rianne Smith gets 2 points. The gap is back to 3 in the 58th minute. we're thinking maybe the nerves will start to come in. But look, Antrim showed what they've been showing all year, why they have this 17-game unbeaten run. Shut up shop at the back, and Aoibhinn Monaghan gets a goal, and now Antrim are back in the All-Ireland decider this year. Very strong performance once again, showing their array of scoring talent and just the way that they're playing. And I think it's going to take an awful lot to stop Antrim from getting the All-Ireland title this year.
I know we spoke about it last week, yeah, but I do think that their like range of players that can get scores is very hard to defend. And I think even when we played them in the league this year, you know, you're thinking, yeah, you know, you need to mark Dahanty and Marie O'Neill. I know I mentioned this last week too, but you know, even Brona Devlin is one of those, like, she's such a key link player for that team. And talk about like experience, just really composed, really calm. Like, again, the fact that shut up shop when they were ahead is talk about like game management in that scenario, you know, for I suppose like people say for junior teams, like they probably think that, oh, they wouldn't, I don't know, maybe people talk like that they wouldn't know it at that standard, but it is like they're very tactically well rehearsed, and they are definitely a very good team to be reckoned with. So probably what was impressed with Sligo running them so close, and like again, we always said kind of Sligo were a very, very good team this year, and maybe didn't give them enough credit to run them that close, but yeah, they can definitely hold their heads high after that performance too.
Absolutely. And I know you talk about Brona Devlin there, but you know, herself and the sister both deserve the plaudits for at both ends of the field doing what they could do to try and get Antrim over the line. Just on the game management side of it, Joanne, and you know, you've spoken about the psychology of it. Like, you know, 12 months ago, Antrim were in games where, you know, they were coming up against teams and they were trying their best, but teams were scoring against them, and there was high scoring routes and there was a lot of deflation and just things like that. Do you think that, you know, they took all of that and you kind of learned from it, and that's where you kind of pick the bits to kind of get your game management right, to say, look, Sligo are after reducing the deficit now to 3 points. We know if we play terribly in these final few minutes, we could be not going to Croke Park in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, oh god, yeah. I'd say a lot of the girls learned a lot from last year, but I think there's definitely a difference in, like, I suppose playing defensive football when you're kind of getting hammered versus you're playing defensive football when you're trying to maintain a lead. You know, they probably have learned a lot of that, kind of like seeing games out this year, you know, because even some of the games that they've won mightn't have been massive margins, you know, and they're just able to see that out. Like, so even the league final against us, like, that they can use that experience and use, like, a lot of them girls would have been there last year and when they were up in intermediate too, like over the years, that they will have that experience and they're all back now. But I do think it's like definitely a tactical thing that has to be worked, and especially in ladies football, like, you know, you can, it's in men's too, like, you know, if you have a sweeper back, then suddenly instead of it being an advantage for your team with an extra defender, you kind of think, oh, I don't have to mark as tight because such and such is behind me to pick up the slack. So I think, like, they have to be so well drilled at that, and I think that's what Antrim actually do really, really well. They stick on their players, and if there's a spare back, that's a spare and that's it. You know, it's not like that they're, you know, dropping off or making life easier for themselves, and then their counter attack is just like, if you leave Marie O'Neill one-on-one, you know, she has speed to burn, she's going to take you on. You know, they can get the scores the other end then when they do turn you over. So I do think it actually would be a very, like, thought through game, and I think even video analysis nowadays, with I'm assuming majority of county teams now have video analysis, and there's no denying that's going to help girls and the standards of football and even the learning capacity of girls too. So yeah, it's interesting.
Like, we've spoken, and you said it there, Joanne, just on Sligo this year, and just maybe we didn't give them enough credit. And I know when I spoke to Nikki Brennan, I said to her, you know, have you gone under the radar and maybe just been, you know, overlooked at times this year to get out of the group? And she agreed just on that. But Sligo have worked so hard over the years to try and get back to this point. Like, you know, the lure of Croke Park, I think, was it 2006 was the last time a Sligo team played in Croke Park. Like, it was it probably was a dream for years to get back there, but like they came so close, and like they ran, as we said, this all-conquering Antrim team that have been on this run, have been scoring for fun in the championship and in the league, and are obviously back in Croke Park again. But Sligo can take so much from this, and I know they probably have girls that are older and could be thinking, maybe I have a year or two left in me, or maybe this is it. But I think they have a lot of younger girls and a lot of experience this year that they can grow, they can develop, and they can go for another shot. If not Division 4 next year, definitely we'll see them in the Junior Championship, putting a marker down to other teams that they are here to compete and get to semi-finals and not just make up the numbers in the championship. And I imagine, Claire, when we speak about Longford being alongside you, probably great to see another county in Sligo flying the flag, and could have been very, very close to realising that dream of getting back to Croke Park this year.
Yeah, like you've said, it's no consolation today that they ran Antrim so close, but I think, upon reflection on the season, it should be a good sign of progress for them. And, it might have came maybe a season too soon, kind of. Sometimes, as both teams just maybe we aren't ready for that final step, let's say, in a given season. They are young, they are, experienced in many parts of the field as well, and there might be a few girls that'll be thinking of what's next for them. But on the whole, I think they're a very young team, and like I say, it might have just came maybe a season too quick. But we'll hear about Sligo in Division 4, and we'll hear about them definitely hear about them in the Junior Championship next year.
Absolutely, I think they're our team of the year in terms of just what they've done to get to this point. And I know last week when we spoke about the senior quarterfinals, the likes of the Tips and Kildare that made it to quarterfinals as well. Not a lot of teams had tipped them to get into the knockout stages, and just like Sligo and even Monaghan, maybe teams didn't think Monaghan would get to where they did either. It could have gone anywhere, and the teams that obviously are in Croke Park on August 3rd mightn't have been the case if a couple of other things had transpired over the weekend. But look, that's the beauty of ladies football this year, is you just can't call anything, and these games are just the way they have been. For the neutral, so Louth taking on Antrim, 11:45. It'll be the first of the triple header in Croke Park on August 3rd, of course, with Laois and Tyrone to follow. And then we'll have to figure out who will be the two senior teams that'll be battling it out for Brendan Martin. That will be for another episode. In terms of senior football, we did have one game at the weekend that took place on Saturday. It kicked off the weekend. It was their senior relegation playoff between Donegal and Leitrim, with Donegal securing their senior status for another year with a 215 to 112 win in Tubbercurry. Donegal showing, I suppose, their style and why they've been a senior team for the last few years. 2-7 to 1-5 up at half time. Ava Gallagher, fantastic for Donegal, but very, very close. Laura O'Dowd gets the goal. I know Donegal had taken the lead, and then, from your perspective, Claire, you come back into it. You're trying to have the deficit, and there's only a couple of points between you, and then look, you kick on into the second half. I suppose you're trying to get a couple of scores. Then Donegal have a really strong start to the second half. Things transpire, and in the space of 8 minutes in the final quarter, you outscore Donegal 5 points to 1. Muireann Devaney, fantastic. I suppose a late inclusion into the panel, whether it was tactics or mind games, to see her coming in those as a delayed change. And you get a penalty, it's saved, and unfortunately, as the minutes tick by, Donegal doing enough to secure their status, and it's back to the intermediate for Leitrim for next season. I know definitely, and it's obviously the cliched thing going, obviously you're gutted with the way the result had gone, Claire, but I'm sure there's a lot of positives that Leitrim can take from senior. I know you probably wanted a couple of years to grow and develop with taking on these senior teams, but I think you'll give intermediate a good rattle now next year with the experience that's been given?
Yeah, we'd hope so. Like, you think of Laois we talked about earlier, and they've been kind of, let's say, up and down from intermediate to senior. I mean, it's a long way back. It takes a lot to reach the final, but yeah, look, the game kind of took a similar enough shape to the Mayo one the previous week. Like, Donegal just had that goal that gave them that little bit of a cushion. We were always up against it, and I thought we probably would put as much of what we'd been training for into the performance on Saturday. Donegal are a great team. I thought their range of scorers was impressive on Saturday. They'd probably be quite well known as a very, very defensive team, but they showed on Saturday that they can defend well, but they can also, I mean, we knew that, but they had a range of scorers on Saturday, and some really impressive, plays put together by them. But yeah, look, it is disappointing, but this is sport. You go up, you try to stay up, and sometimes you get put back down. But I do think, last year, and someone said to me yesterday, it must have been some experience to get to play those teams, and you're kind of going, I suppose, yeah. And I mean, again, you look back and go, we got to play the Dublins, the Galways, the Waterfords, the Donegals, the Mayos. Like, it is great experience, and particularly for that younger set of players. Like, I'm hoping that's inspiration for them and kind of motivation for them to go, that's where we want to be playing. But as I said, it's a long, long way back in an intermediate championship to a final, but I'd like to think that we'll be coming from a very strong base.
Like, Donegal have some fantastic players and you mentioned the range of scorers, like, Suzanne White has been playing for them for years, comes up with a goal and 2 points. Jodie McFadden gets a goal. Eva Gallagher, as I mentioned, 9 points. Like, they just had, I suppose, it just showed their experience that when their backs were to the walls and they needed to stay up, that they showed their quality, and probably disappointed from the sense that they didn't show it in other areas of the championship to try and get into a quarter final and fight to get into the latter stages of the knockouts of it. From the Leitrim perspective, like, I don't know the word, and it will be something that you'll be probably sick of hearing for the next few months. It'll be, well, what's next, in terms of, like, teams go down, as we mentioned. It's taken a lot of, for some teams, it's taken a good few years to bounce back up. Others can get the likes of Laois and an All-Ireland final this year, Antrim in an All-Ireland final as well, after coming down from relegation. Not, it doesn't happen for everyone. But as you mentioned there, Claire, like, the younger girls, and I imagine, like, the buzz that was in Leitrim last year when you won the intermediate, like the homecoming and everything that was associated with it, I can imagine that. And we'll see it, Leitrim are in an under-16 All-Ireland final this week, and the underage structure is coming through and stuff like that, those girls can look at you and say, Leitrim are playing senior football for the first time in 10, 15 years this year. It's been a long time, that there's no reason why we can't now go in and try and help them to get back to that stage once again.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I'd like to think football in Leitrim is in a better place because we went up senior this year. Do you know what I mean? You could say, well, what's the difference? You're back down intermediate, but I'd never look at that in that way myself anyway, and I don't think anyone else would either. But no, it is there are great signs in the underage, like you say, structures, and there's massive work been put into developing those underage structures. You can't kind of just hope that the adult team will appear out of nowhere. Like, you have to be building from underage. But yeah, look, it's we made an intermediate final and won it last year as a Division 4 team. We played Division 2 teams along the way, maybe even a Division 1, I'm not sure. But I suppose if you're looking at incremental progress and development, probably where we need to be is looking to get out of Division 4. Like, we've been there a long time, and that's probably step one on the ladder, really, if you're looking more long-term development. But look, yeah, hugely disappointed. Nobody wants to go back, like, kind of back in their box after coming up to senior. But I mean, for me personally as a player, like, unbelievable memories across all years, but particularly last year. And it's so strange to think it's already so last season. Like, I think yesterday was the semi-final, kind of same as it has been this season, but it's been a quick year, and it's amazing how, you're totally yesterday's news. But like you say, Diarmuid, the people in Leitrim, we have those memories forever and we'll treasure them.
Absolutely. The scenes of bringing the cup, obviously, that has such a, I suppose a special bond now with Leitrim when it's named after Mary Quinn. Like it was, I suppose, a fairy tale story last year that after so many years, Leitrim did win it and bring it back. And obviously, Adele's on the team this year. Of course, she has had her injury battles, but like to see her there last year, even involved in the panel, like that was a great thing to see. And Longby, you see Leitrim competing in these competitions and obviously trying to get back and winning those All-Irelands. We've heard from the Leitrim camp after the game. Now we'll hear from the Donegal camp and I suppose just their feelings of getting senior status football now for another year. So I got the thoughts of their captain, Roisin Rogers. Now, survival was the aim of the game when Donegal played Leitrim at the weekend, and I'm delighted to be joined by the Donegal captain, Roisin Rogers. Roisin, you're very welcome to our Ladies Gaelic Football podcast.
Thank you very much. What's the crack?
In terms of Donegal, you're in senior now for another year after beating Leitrim at the weekend. Maybe just a hint of disappointment that it took going into a relegation playoff to see out the 2025 season.
Yeah, it was definitely a tough season that we had. Like, there's no denying that. I think it's like everyone's been talking about it. We are a new team. We have a lot of younger players, a lot of our older players who kind of left us and stuff. So we knew kind of going into this championship, especially against the caliber teams that are in senior now, like it was going to be a challenge for us. But we were just delighted that on Saturday that we were able to get it over the line. We made it tough for ourselves having to go to the second round of the relegation, and we were just, like I said, delighted that we were able to actually get over the line on Saturday on Leitrim. So
it does look like there is that hint of a transition period in Donegal. When you look at a couple of years ago, you were in an All-Ireland semi-final at the senior grade, and now the way that this year transpired, having to go through the relegation playoff. There is new players in, new manager as well, James coming in this year as well. So it does take a little bit of a vetting process to get new players into the system, and also just a new manager to get used to the systems in place as well.
Yeah, 100%. We definitely had, a couple of years ago, we'd made it to All Ireland semi-finals. We were playing Meath and Croke Park, and now we're in that kind of relegation battle, and we're kind of fighting to get through it and stuff. So it's definitely takes a while to for that kind of transition to happen and make everyone gel together. And like you said, new managers coming in and new ideas are kind of coming through and stuff like that as well. But considering everything that we kind of were up against this year, I think we done actually fairly well to make it to what we did and make the most out of it. And like the girls coming through, like they're very young girls, like I think our average age is around like 21 or so like they're great. It's their first year up in senior and getting that challenge with them, and that's their first year under their belt now. So now it's just about what we can do to build on that and get more progress going forward.
Obviously there is still a few older heads that are in the squad that those girls can lean on, which is great that you have that blend of youth and experience to call upon, and a lot of those girls have put the hand up this year. I know the league didn't go the way that you would have wanted. Then it was into the championship and beaten by Armagh in the Ulster final, and then going straight into having into the group stage phase of the All-Ireland series. And I suppose those results were probably harder to take than maybe the league.
Yeah, definitely. Like the league was a tough enough challenge for us. Like we were going into a lot of them games, and it was again like some of them girls' first time ever out in I don't know jersey, like ladies' jersey out there. So it was great to get them to have that bit of experience under their belt. And then kind of going up again against Armagh in the Ulster final, we knew that was going to be a massive step up for us. It was going to be a massive challenge. Armagh are an incredible team, and they have some serious caliber players there. Like they really are fighting for us, and we knew kind of going into that it was going to be like I said, a big step up for us. So it was definitely tough going into those games, and I feel like we probably didn't perform to the best of our abilities as well. Going into those games, I think maybe a bit of nerves kind of got to us as well, and a few things just weren't working out for us on our side of things as well. So there was a lot to do, but like you said, like some of the older girls were here, and they really set the example for the younger girls. Like you had Evelyn in there Blanid coming back, and Susie up there as well. Like, they're great players that have lots of experience playing, senior ladies football, and they were able to show that to some of the younger girls, and they were able to take that experience, with them, and hopefully now drive that on forward now going into the next season,
And obviously there's leadership that comes with it. And speaking of leadership, you get the honour then to captain the team this year at such a young age, and about, I think it's your 6th season now since you first stepped into the Donegal setup. So what was that feeling like to be given that role this year?
Yeah, it was a lot to take on, to be fair. I was very shocked whenever I did, when James did appoint me captain. It was a big one. I think that was definitely one of those moments where I never had really thought that I would ever be, captain of like Donegal ladies team, especially I think maybe just because I was so young and thinking about it, and it feels like it was only yesterday that I was starting off, as like some of these younger girls coming through are now. So it was like a big shock to the system, but it was a big honour. And I had Susie and Evelyn there as well to help guide me and take me through as well. And it was a big learning curve this year to be able to try and step up as best as I could. Also try and teach some of the younger girls anything that I knew and some of my experience coming through. But also try and, take on some more experience that I learned that I have to learn as well. Like, I'm still only 23 and trying to guide people through stuff, and sometimes I may not have all the answers. So it's nice to be able to kind of work that out as a unit and as a team together, and take things through. So it's definitely been a big learning curve, but like forever grateful for having the experience and having a great team behind me that listen to me, and they're able to back me up whenever we need it as well. Like, it's great to have that.
So I know obviously now you're battling on the field as the captain and putting on the jersey with honor and distinction. And when you started off, it was all about trying to get to training sessions and games, walking miles and trying to get a bus or whatever mode of transport you could get. It was a very unconventional start to an intercounty career.
Yeah, definitely. I started off when I was 17. I was still playing for the minors at the time, and it was definitely a tough challenge trying to make it to and from training. Sometimes it would just be a lot of work, like you said, walking miles and getting buses and all sorts. There's definitely a good few memories of those days, getting up early and having to walk to buses and get them, and be waiting around Letterkenny for a couple hours before training would start, and same thing on the way back. But you know what? Like, I think whenever I started off anyway, I know people always used to give out to me now, and they're like, "You're crazy, like, why would you do that?" But at the time, it was just purely for the love of it. I loved it. I wanted to play for Donegal, and I wanted to show up and take the learnings from it. And it was just, for me, it wasn't an option. It was just like, this is what you do. You're in the senior team now. You commit to it, and if you're going to commit to it, you go 100%. And that's just kind of the type of person I suppose I am. I just kind of committed to it, and I suppose it paid off in the end up. Like, I was delighted for it. I never really thought twice about it. It was only until other people were saying to me and giving out to me that, like, you can ask for a lift. Like, I was like, oh, fair enough. Is when I thought about it then. But here, it is what it is, and it paid off in the end up.
Absolutely. And the Donegal transport systems anyway have been a debate for a lot of people in terms of how they managed to get around up there. But obviously you've enjoyed the time with Donegal and look to continue that as well, and really enjoyed the game on Saturday, even though it was in absolutely sweltering heat. You really did put the shoulder to the wheel in terms of the performance to get over the line, backs against the walls, knowing, look, we're 60 minutes from either staying as a senior team or dropping down to the intermediate grade, depending on what way the game would go. But for large spells, very impressive, and happy. Obviously, you're happy with the outcome, but happy with the way you played.
Yeah, definitely. I think when we knew, obviously, we were paired up with Armagh again in the first round, like, we knew we had a massive, massive challenge ahead of us going into that game. And I think coming out of that game, we were all just very disappointed in ourselves. I think we knew we could have done better, and we didn't really show up on the day. Things weren't really working out for us, and we knew that we should have done better basically as a unit. So I think we had like 6 days or so, before we had the game against Leitrim, And on the Sunday, we all were just trying to figure out what we can do going into that week, into that training week, to show up basically for ourselves and as a team and as a unit. And we knew that we had one last chance to fix what we had kind of got ourselves into, the situation we'd got ourselves into. So we had went into training on Tuesday and spoke as a team, and it really seemed to nail us down and get us back to where we wanted to be. We didn't want to be going down to intermediate. It's a tough battle in intermediate. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And we just thought that we needed to show up. And I think on Saturday we really proved to ourselves that we can do it. And I think it was a lot of outside noise that we're kind of probably getting to us a little bit as well. A lot of people are kind of saying that you are so inexperienced and you are so young, and you don't have a lot of your older players there, like they've gone and they've moved on and stuff. And I think a lot of people had kind of doubted us throughout the year, and I think it's probably slowly started to seep in a little bit, like when you hear that constantly going in and out of chatting to people and interviews after games and stuff. You hear people saying it to you kind of over and over again. And I think for ourselves on Saturday, it was nice for ourselves to just be able to prove that we do deserve to stay up in senior and give it our best shot. And I think we done ourselves justice, and we did that on Saturday. We really showed up and done well, and I'm so proud of the team for able to do that, getting the outcome then on Saturday.
Does all that noise that you hear, does that put players down, or do you take that and try to use it as fuel to prove the doubters wrong the next time you step on a pitch?
I think everyone's probably interpretation of it is very different. I think for me, I don't mind the noise. I think maybe it's just because I've probably played just a little bit longer than some of the other girls. I've been able to kind of block it out a little bit over time, and I tend not to read a lot of the kind of social media things that are out there, and try my best to avoid it as best I can, because I suppose it can affect you a little bit. I think it can be tough to be able to hear those things being said over and over again, and people do doubt you and stuff. And I think it's only natural for some of it to actually sink in and be like, you do start to question yourself a little bit. But I think probably maybe with a little bit more experience, maybe the older you get in the game and the more seasons probably played, the more that you're probably able to block it out as well. And I think maybe probably the older we get, it's definitely something we can take from this year and learn from it, is to just try not to listen to as much outside noise. And the only people opinions that matter is the people that are in your circle and in your team, and they're the people that kind of count. Everything else is just noise, like we say. So it's they can say whatever, and you have to just try and block it out as best you can, I think.
I know the mental side of the game is a very tough thing, just to have, I suppose, everything that goes on, and you hear the noise and all that kind of stuff can maybe affect the performance, and just try to block it out for your own perspective as well. I know, say this year you were listening to probably stuff off the field and what people might say about the Donegal performances, especially as the captain. But then in the last 12 months in your own life, a couple of things have happened as well. How have you managed to stay, I suppose, so level-headed throughout these last 12 months?
Yeah, it's definitely been a tough 12 months. I'd lost one of my college friends. We were in college together, and we played on the same college team, and I'd lost her very close to actually the college All Ireland's kind of series that was going on, and we'd ended up playing that, and we actually ended up winning that kind of competition. And it was for me, it was just a nice way to honor her and her family. And it was definitely tough, but I definitely think without football being there, I don't know if I would have been able to probably progress through it. For me, it was definitely just, it's my way of having an outlet. And then I suppose a couple of months after that, then my cousin had passed away as well, and due to just suicide, and it was a tough one to take, as I suppose a family and friends around us. And we had grown up together, and we'd kicked around a football together, and it was definitely tough to be able to kind of take that on. And I know it was actually before the league game against Kerry. I'm pretty sure it was maybe last year. I'd found out, and that was definitely a tough one to take, and trying to navigate through that, but also concentrate on, I suppose, my footballing career and where that was kind of going, where we were kind of going as a team and stuff throughout the year. And it was definitely a tough one. But like I said, like without football and without having, I suppose, my teammates around me to check in and be there, and family checking in, it definitely would have been a lot harder to be able to get through and progress through, because it's a tough road to try and navigate, and there's no right or wrong way of doing it. And for me, it was just about, I had to just kind of get more stuck in and concentrate more on that, as I suppose a bit of a distraction in a way, but it also helped me kind of deal with it in different ways as well.
You know, because I remember being down in Cork for those college finals around the start of last year, and there was so much emotion leading up into that game, and just everything that had transpired. And then, you know, ATU Sligo get over the line, and you know, the emotion after the game, like you could just see it. When you ended up singing the song at the end of the game as well, and it got put up on video. Like, I think everyone in Ireland probably had seen that at some point. And I suppose it just shows what football can mean to a lot of people. And, you know, they always say there's more to life than sport, but the GAA and other sports can really bring a load of people together, and you play with a purpose every single week, because there might be something that you're playing for that's a lot more than the crest on your jersey and stuff like that. In terms of outlets, obviously Donegal have senior football now for another year, and the under 16 girls winning an All-Ireland title this week as well. Like, there's great young players now coming through. We spoke about younger players coming into the team this year and taking the jersey with both hands. How important is that now that Donegal will have senior football to build on for next season?
Yeah, it's so important. Like, you know, we're going into it again, and it's not, I suppose, as new to a lot of us now. We've kind of got that first year under our belts. We know kind of a little bit more of what to expect going into next season. And once I think we got that kind of first season under our belt, we had a little bit more of experience going into this year now. It's just about kind of that progression. And you know, I was actually down at the under 16s game yesterday, and it was class to just see some of them younger girls coming through, you know, popping points, left foot, right foot, and you know, they done their county pride, and they done their jersey pride, and I have nothing but admiration for every single one of them, because they done so good. And it's so nice to be able to see that coming through, and you know that in a few years' time, you know, they'll be doing the exact same thing, and we'll have all those kind of players coming up with us, and another bit of experience to come through there as well. And I think it's class now going into next season, having that kind of in the back burner, knowing that we definitely have all these younger girls kind of coming through with so much experience under their belt, and such caliber players. They can do so much, and it's so nice to see. So next season's going to be a big one for us, just being able to lock in and try our best to build on what we've already built this year, and see what much more we can do from it, get more experience under our belts, more challenges, and face them head on, and play without fear and have no regrets going into the season. I think that's a big one for us as well.
Absolutely. The future definitely does look very, very bright in Donegal. Roisin, thanks very much for coming on to our Ladies Gaelic Football podcast this week.
Thank you so much.
So that, of course, was the Donegal captain, Roisin Rogers. That ends episode number 7 for this week. Of course, like last week, we will have a designated podcast for the All-Ireland senior semi-finals that take place in Tullamore on Saturday, and seeing just who will contest for the Brendan Martin Cup on the 3rd of August. We know who will be in the junior final. That will be between Louth and Antrim at 11:45. And we'll know who's in the intermediate final between Laois and Tyrone. That game is 1:45. But who will be the final 2 teams that will make it to Croke Park? Well, we just have to wait and find out what happens on Saturday. But my thanks to Joanne and Claire for all their analysis for episode number 7 of our podcast this week. We hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll have another episode tomorrow talking about everything to do with Saturday's action. So we'll see you next time.